Hey there, friends. It's Bill McDonald, the writing doctor, and I brought my friend here with me who we'll call him my twin because we're both wearing glasses. We're both kind of bald. You can't see my ears, so I've been told sometimes I don't listen very well. He's got two hands, so we might use two examples of evidence, but I want you to notice these little guys have yellow on the top and red on the bottom. So if I tell you that the top of his head represents the topic, where I want you to think of the topic as the red light, the sentence, the key word that everything centers around. And a lot of times, your students, because they're trying to use some acronym, instead of going straight to the yellow light to look at the evidence, examples, they try to restate the prompt or repeat the words in the prompt or the topic, but not actually respond to it. So we have to be able to teach the kids to think about the topic, red light, go straight to the evidence, look for evidence that relates to the topic, the keywords, then they can go back to the red light and answer it. If your students do not respond to the prompt with their central idea, controlling idea, the center of everything, what controls everything, the thesis, then their introduction, their body, and their conclusion won't be aligned based and on an idea that actually responds to the topic based on evidence. So I'm going to show you our sixth grade prompt from this past year so I can make sure that you know how to do that. All right. The sixth grade, just like seventh grade that we'll do in our next video, and eighth grade that we did recently, yesterday or the day before, depending on when you looked at it, was based on a cause and effect relationship. So remember, the topic, the keywords in the topic are going to be the red light. The answer, how you answer it, has to be based on a combination of the yellow light and the red light, the evidence that we find. So they asked how did the Camel Mobile Library affect the people of Garissa? So when you affect things, when you have an effect on things, when you affect things, you'll have an effect. There'll be a result. There'll be a reaction because of the actions of the library. There'll be a reaction. Things will contrast. Things will be different. And another thing you can say is there is the effect, is the difference in their life something positive or is it something negative? And that a lot of times will help the kids. And so what I did for you already was I went ahead and wrote in the TEA. They're the ones who made this silly test. How we go straight from the topic, touching the top of his head, to the evidence, then to the answer to come up with a controlling idea statement, a central idea statement for elementary, or a thesis statement for high school. So as I read through these, we'll talk about some different effects. Okay. So I just highlighted the things that were specifically how the library itself affected the people who lived in Garissa, not the other things that the camels themselves had some effect, but the library is what they asked about the camels. So it had to make sure it was how the library that the camels were bringing had the effect on the people of Garissa. So I'm going to read just the highlighted portions that I wrote for you. Books in various subject areas such as cattle rearing and management, dry land farming, small scale businesses and enterprises, basic training manuals for adults, education, and junior readers for the school and regions are some of the resources that help fill the needs of the people in the region's community. So I'm going to make sure that I highlight that part because that was so as you see here, this noble service is a traveling library that transports books and reading materials on a camel's back. So that's why it's called the mobile library. So you can say it helped people start businesses. The Camel Library had basic training for adult education. The Camel Library uh, helped with education of kids in schools. So it all had to do with education using books, transporting the books with the animal so identified with the life of the community is overwhelming, and this enhances the use of library books. So I'm not sure what went wrong with whoever wrote that article on the internet, but I'm thinking that life in the community is overwhelming. And so because they needed something to get them through this difficult life that they had, they they feel that um, the books and their reading were increased because of the camel's ability to bring them. The object of the Camel Mobile Library Service is to provide information to the disadvantaged people who cannot be served by static libraries like regular libraries. So some people are disadvantaged. In other words, possibly you can't go to the library comes to you. Okay, still relates to education, but you could use this one to talk about how the library brings the education to you instead of you having to go to it. There is a need to assist and eradicate poverty and illiteracy in the region. Okay. So it helped get rid of, or at least impacted in a positive way by lowering the poverty rate, the illiteracy rate, which if the people look it up, you see here it's 85% of the people in that region were illiterate. So when your kids look that up, they'll see that it means that they don't know how to read. It also observed that education is the foundation of human development. There's a need to encourage and provide leisure reading and general knowledge so we can get ideas from here. And so we can focus on the poverty. The Camel Library affected the people of Garissa, exact words, by helping to lower the poverty rate. And you could focus on that, but only that portion talks specifically about poverty. So you'd have to connect it to the example of how it did that. Well, it brought the books to them. It uh, allowed them to learn basic trades, such as the ones listed here. And then you could, in the body, explain the evidence and how is being able to learn farming and cattle rearing and uh, having books in schools for the children and having adult education, how is that going to help? So it helped to educate people. So I could come up with a controlling idea based on that in one of these, it lowered the poverty level. It lowered the ability of people who did not know how to read. It increased the general knowledge of people. It increased their just reading for pleasure instead of reading because you have to. So all of those are great ideas. And so I suggest that one of the first things that you do is go get one of these little guys. And some of them have one eye and some of them have two. And so those of you who teach your kids to come up with a controlling idea that's based on two ideas, for example, helped with education and reading enjoyment. It helped with lowering the poverty rate and the percentage of people who did not know how to read. And then you'd be able to go to the passage and use the evidence, explain it, explode it, end it, and then have your editing and revising. So that, my friends, using the mini-me's, the minions, mini-me of Mr. McDonald, the writing doctor, to help your kids remember to use the traffic light idea and TEA to help them come up with a clear central idea statement, controlling idea statement, or thesis statement. God bless and goodbye.